So I'll just give us an outline of how we're going to proceed in this particular event. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take stock of the various projects that we have within the D Lab. And we're going to be asking two very important questions. The first question being, what are we currently doing as the D Lab to address some of the areas of innovation that are needed to fully domesticate our economy? And then the second question is, what areas should we be focused on as the D Lab to also address the issue of domesticating our economy? So these are the two pressing questions that we're going to be addressing throughout the course of this entire event. And I really hope that all of us are ready for this very important discussion, particularly when we know that Ashesi is like the beacon of Africa in terms of entrepreneurship and in terms of ethical leadership. So if there's any way upon the globe where this conversation is supposed to be happening, it's definitely here at Ashesi.
Welcome, everybody. So just to give a little bit of a landscape of how innovation and entrepreneurship looks like at Ashesi, we all are very much aware of FDE, which starts the journey for all students, introduces them to how to frame problems, how to explore them, how to take that systems perspective to problem solving, how to prototype and also capture their solutions in ways that can engage with users very well. When we took stock, there were courses in computer science and engineering and so forth that support or build on what you learn in FDE. And then it culminates in, when we talk about curricula, in terms of curriculum courses, it culminates into the entrepreneurship capstone, where you sort of explore concepts, solutions, value propositions in depth. But it's also very clear to us that you don't make entrepreneurs by only focusing on classroom teaching, right? A lot of entrepreneurship happens outside of the classroom. And so we also have extracurricular programs. So the D Lab provides you with the opportunity to literally follow your dream at your own pace, right? At your own pace. It's not bound by classroom sort of timelines. You also have the Ashesi Startup Launchpad, which helps you to explore the market viability of your ideas. And then there are so many other clubs on campus as well. And then you have the Ashesi Venture Incubator, which allows enterprising students to take a year, whether for national service or if they've already done national service, they can still do it maybe up to about 3 years after graduation, to spend 1 year exploring business concepts that they have. It's de-risked in the sense that you are getting a stipend at the same level as FIs, but you're working for yourself. And you are also supported to work in hub spaces outside of your house. So your parents don't say, what are you doing in a room pretending to be an entrepreneur, right? You get up in the morning and there's a place to go to. And we also provide prototype funding, technical support, and also we even have a psychologist who works with the entrepreneurs, the fellows, and talks to them about how they can improve on their own personal competencies. There's one that I left out earlier, which is the Kareen program, which helps students to explore the creative arts and other interests for grade, right? So that's part of the curricular programming. And then I would probably maybe Prof. Angela might touch on this, but the experiential transcript that is the more the newer installation, if you will, to help students, first year students especially, to sort of explore other areas as they get ready to enter into the mainstream curriculum. So I think along the landscape, all the way from first year to right after you graduate, there are so many opportunities to one, explore your dream; two, to build a business on it; three, to scale it and make impact. I don't know of another university, especially in Ghana, that has this level of support across its landscape. So I think we're very fortunate, and what we really do need to figure out is how we can stretch the impact that it can make, what all these resources can make, both on our students and also on our communities.
It is great that we have been able to make this happen, regardless of all the setbacks that we faced. As we have introduced, we really want to understand, just try to answer two broad questions. So number one, with all the things that are happening here at Ashesi, what does it mean when it comes to innovation for domestication? What are we doing right in light of this? And what can we focus on? And we chose these members of the panel based on the very unique perspectives they can add to the story. So, for instance, Prof. Angela brought in carrying experiential transcript. We know Dr. Nathan is the Dean of Engineering. Emmanuel here, Academic Affairs, helps students to manage their time, manage curricular and extracurricular activities. Dr. Domja here is the lead of the Ashesi D Lab and also an associate professor in entrepreneurship and design. And Eben here is, as we all say, the main exec person that we have. So this is really, really, if I should say, a solid panel to be able to touch on the subject matter. So without any further ado, I will start with Prof. Angela.
To be fair, most interviews and for graduate school or for employment will ask you about your extracurricular activities. And in all honesty, you can put a few on your resume. But when you put it on your resume, it looks the same as somebody at University of Ghana. Meanwhile, you had to do 40 hours. They might have just gone to a classroom twice, but they write the same thing you do. So with the experiential transcript, it gave you an extra page: scholarship, citizenship, and leadership. Not many people are aware of the uniqueness of the Ashesi learning experience. This gives you, even before you, because you have to submit these things before they even invite you to the interview. So it gives you the edge because you've been able to showcase much more of yourself and much more than most before you're even called to the interview. We don't want you to be treated the same as others because your experience is totally different. And again, what is the point of doing all that we do and only being able to tell part of our story? We are underrepresenting ourselves and Ashesi if we do that. So this is just an intentional way to make sure that nobody misses your experiences. Even if you're not there in person, it goes ahead of you. I've been in my office when someone will come with some experience that they want to go and do. Some of us can see right through it and say, this is a scam. So through the experiential transcript, we're able to filter through those that have more value and those that don't have as much bang for the buck. So that when you're choosing your experiences, you choose the heavy hitters. You choose the ones that will give you most credibility, as opposed to doing a lot of tiny things that really don't add up to much. The experiential transcript is such that you have to tell us what you're planning on doing. If you don't tell us and you before you do it and you tell us afterwards, we may or may not accept it. So it's supposed to help us to make sure that you spend your time wisely on things that are of high quality. I could go on and on. You can tell this is something that I'm very passionate about. I just feel that Ashesi is so much more, and we need to be able to, make sure that these life-changing experiences you've gone through can be definitely represented and not missed. Another thing that you hear a lot on Ashesi campus is from students, I am stressed. I think we had about 4 focus group meetings. We met with at least 75 students, 25, 12, 16, etc., different year groups, different departments, and we just talked to the students. And we found out that most of the students, when they talk about being stressed, it was mainly because they didn't have an outlet for being creative. And then, so the Creative Festival came out of the reimagining, actually. So I'll quickly touch on that later. But they really didn't have an outlet for being creative. Yes, there was the opportunity for, different activities on campus. But their fear was, if I spend that much time in those spaces and I don't get credit for it, it might affect my grade. So we created this course where you actually develop your own course and get credit for it. And you can either develop something that is mainly creative, and we use a project management rubric where we're managing or we're assessing how well you're doing different things. And then we also have another rubric where you meet with an expert in the field that you have chosen to develop. So you can either do something creative, that's the C in the Karine. You can either do some research, that is apart from your capstone, some burning question you have that you need funding to do, to explore. Lloyd Tete, he was in Karine. He had this burning question about inflatable wings, and guess what? He went straight from Ashesi to a PhD program all around these inflatable wings, which I didn't understand. When he was doing those inflatable wings things, I didn't understand, but it was apparently something very revolutionary. And so, we've got so many students who have been presenting at major discipline-based conferences through the work they've done in Karine. You can do your own research, or you can identify a faculty member whose research you are interested in supporting and serve as a research intern for that faculty member. Gain, graduate level research skills while helping out, and then gets your credits for the work you do with the faculty member. And then lastly, it could actually be something in entrepreneurship, some venture you want to explore. We're lucky. We've got one of our board members who funds it. So there's funding for it as well that allows you to explore these things. So all in all, I'll say that those who have taken Karine think it's one of the best things because, like I said, it's your course. You design it, you create, you tell us how you plan for it to be assessed, but then we give you 2 faculty members to support you. One who is teaching you concepts in research, another who's teaching you concepts in creativity, in fact 3, and then we give you one who is an expert in the topic area that you have chosen to explore. So we find that all of these things have been very helpful. And I'll just add one last thing. You all remember that Reimagine Ashesi that we did, right? And then the Creative Festival, I was speaking to the folks, and one of the spin-offs is that through that, there was this idea of moving it into that space. And hopefully we'll have the Creative Festival every year, again, helping us to find ourselves and give ourselves the opportunity to develop 360 of who we are. So I'll be quiet. I know Derry will not ask me a question again after that.
Actually,
but thank you.
I want you to just tie everything that you've said. You mentioned something about the value of what the students are doing. We want you to tie everything that you have said into the theme of innovation for domestication.
The things that I was talking about, be it Karine, be it being intentional to make sure that your experiential transcript showcases your scholarship, showcases your citizenship, showcases your leadership. Almost all those things require ideation, some level of prototyping, etc. So it's these fundamental skills that then build your capacity and your desire and your willingness and capability of moving into things that would help domestically, creating things that would help domestically. So I think they're all foundational blocks that can be, put together in different permutations depending on which area of domestication or even beyond that you would like to do. And if I may just add one tiny thing, these building blocks are so key in that we don't know what the world is going to offer us in the future, but having those different skills, and when you see something you haven't seen before, when you have a problem you haven't confronted before, putting together in various, I'm using the same words again, various permutations of these different skills allows you to be successful. So even if you're not necessarily domesticating, you are providing the opportunity for everyone to be successful in their domestic situation, which I think is also very important.
I think this conversation really, we can't talk about it without looking at the technical side of things. As the Dean of Engineering, you've seen so many projects go through the different courses in engineering. In the D Lab, we have a number of projects that we've actually contacted you to help support. In your view, how are these things contributing to efforts when it comes to innovation within Ashesi ecosystem, which we can probably say is the hope for us to add to any efforts towards domestication in the country?
Engineers actually design. That's our fundamental job. We design, but we go the next step in Ashesi to build something. If I ask, what's the one thing they spend most money on? What would it be? Food, right? So whether we are students, whether we are workers or young people, the one thing that all of us need is food. Our food comes from far. Actually, food is not expensive. If you leave campus and you go on the road between campus and Kitasi Junction, the food is cheap. When you get to Kitasi Junction, it's expensive again. But when you get to campus, it's expensive again. But in between, it's actually not that expensive. It's not that hard to produce. But how many would like to go farming? Not many of us. Few, right? But if you make it fancy, everyone would want to consider it. We've actually done projects on that. Hydroponics. You can grow food without necessarily getting your hands dirty. And you can have a bigger yield in a smaller space. You literally grow the plants on water and nutrients, right? So the fertilizer is in the water and it circulates. There are different ways of doing it. It's quite simple to set up. You can literally set it up on your veranda outside. That's something that if everyone did, you could get your green vegetables and other kinds of crops without it traveling. You can get it for cheap and get it fresh, right? So those are projects we've done. We can actually expand on, and in the long run, yes, you get food that hasn't traveled and wilted before you receive it, and that's one of the things I see as something that everyone needs. However, the technology is not readily available. If I said tomorrow, let's start, I'm sure we are all going to scratch our heads. What are we going to do? It's actually not that hard. So for engineering students or engineers, we could actually make that technology more available to everyone, because we can design the circuit to do it. We can package it nicely. All you have to do is assemble it, and then you start your farm in your house. Yes, it's good to have a garden in your house. It might get messy sometimes. That's one step. But you could also have a hydroponic system. I'm sure people actually marvel at it when they see it. You'll be proud of it, but it gives you the food that you need. And that's the one thing we spend the most money on. right? And you bring your cost down. So there are lots of little, I just give you one example. There are lots of little things that we can do locally. We don't need to import anything. Of course, the components will come from abroad, but if you're buying the whole system, it's still going to be expensive. But we can build it locally. You can assemble it. You can grow your food. If you get happy doing this, but also get your food and eat and happy and stay healthy.
I'll bring the conversation to you, Mr. Emmanuel Into. There's this thing that Prof. Angela also hinted, that students really struggle to manage what they learn in classroom and opportunities to learn out of classroom, because Ashesi is packed, you have a lot of things to do, and you are the main support system that Ashesi has put in place to help students plan their 4-year curriculum plan and everything. So from your perspective, as we are talking about enhancing or building on our innovation efforts towards the domestication, how or what advice would you give, or how would you even advise all of us, both the students and we, the support system, faculty and staff, to deal with this?
Okay, thank you. I strongly believe that a university education is based on two things: to discover and to explore. And so for me, discovering and exploring is my focus. And one cool afternoon, I had a student come to my office and say that I want to have a lot of time on my hands. I want to do something more than academics. And guess what? I was shocked, because I mostly have the opposite. I'm too stressed. I don't have time for all that. But I've realized that for students who are in the creative space, thanks to Prof and thanks to the academic affairs, there's this opportunity for them to explore. And I seem to see that they do better when they are able to find one, since they found a space and they are enjoying what they do. I think that for some of us, our stay here in Ashesi is just because of the fact that we are now loving to do the things we want to do, and that is keeping some people here. And I've also seen several projects come out from the D Lab, and this was because mainly students were able to manage their time. I think that if we should give everybody here the opportunity to not to drop one course and say do something creative, we will all go for it. And the reason why the current course for me is a splendid idea, and so you want to encourage it. So some students come and say, Emmanuel, what happens if I take the current course? Brilliant idea, yes. It will count towards your GPA and all that. And so you see a lot of us moving into that space. But I was so sad this semester when I realized that one student had to drop the current course, mainly because it was an extra load. And so choosing between going for grades and the current, he decided to drop the current course instead. Now, if we have this space on campus, and thanks to what Prof. Angela said, there's a system in Ashesi embraces innovation, and we need more of this. We need more ideas. We need more of you guys here to be creative. We need you to bring everything you have in there here in this space. So we really want to encourage that, because through that we are solving problems regarding Ghana's issues. And it would always be good to hear that Ashesi students are involved in A, B, C, and D, just because one, they have the right environment to, they are able to manage themselves well, and they're able to also manage their time well. So yes, I would always go for the fact that if you should come over to my office and say that, well, can we discuss? And I push the curriculum. I really would sign off anybody who brings a permission and say, I found something, I want a week off, I want to go for this conference, I want to go and learn more on this, because I believe that we are getting you to learn more outside as a classroom. And that is what, again, the design lab brings on board. So yes, of course, I strongly believe the innovation we have on campus is good, but I want to push for more ideas. It will not affect your GPA, you'll be fine, if that is a bigger concern. And for the engineering students, I think my bigger concern with some of you is that there is not that time. But there are some alums in this room who were part of awesome creative things. I don't know how they did it, but I believe that if you should get closer to them, they will tell you they made time for it. And the very things you love, you make time for. Let me say it again. The things you do love, you make time for them. So if you love it, make time for it, regardless of whatever is going to go on. So once again, ending on a note that the very things you love, you make time for it, regardless of the Ashesi quote-unquote pressure, which I really sometimes don't think it really exists. I think the bigger concern is time management.
Mr. Bachman, in Dr. Patrick Awar's submission during the deep dive week, when he was talking about Ashesi's plan for the next decade, there were two key opportunity areas that has made this conversation very relevant. Number one, he mentioned that Africa is going to become a manufacturing hub. There's also free continental trade. So it means that if anything at all, we have to really ramp up our efforts towards innovation to build things like Dr. Nathan mentioned. We can build the local things. If we consume and we have excess, then we can look at exporting them. That's how we build at least Ghana as a manufacturing hub. And since Ashesi is a Pan-African environment, we build Africa as a manufacturing hub. So I would like to get your perspective, if we can say you are representing EZEC.
One of the reasons why the strategic plan projects, we were trying to think of what the continent is going to look like, or what sort of things are coming once we go beyond the horizon. 2 weeks or so, Nathan and I were in a meeting with a manufacturing company from Germany. They produce these filters for cars, for combustion engines. And they were speaking about how in Europe, combustion engines are being phased out. And so they're going to stop making them, and they're going to move to electric cars. And for them, it's becoming very clear to them that their next big market is going to be Africa, because we still use quite a lot of combustion engines, and they think that the next consumer base is going to be here. And so in order to be able to prepare for that shift, they need to figure out how to start operating in continents, understand how to build the same manufacturing capabilities that they've built in Asia and Europe. They need to replicate it in Africa. Mechatronics Engineering Master's Program, all the industrial partners on that program are in some ways manufacturers. I think there's one agricultural firm or so. There's a packaging company. But they are all sort of investing in scholarships and training because they want to grow their Africa skills base, and they want to expand their Africa operations. And so in order to do that, they need to leverage local talent. There's only so much you can do by continuing to import talent from other parts of the world to come and work in Ghana and Nigeria. Chances are your next CEO, your next chief technical officer is sitting in this room. And so you want to be able to make time to understand, how do I understand the people who are in these universities today, and how do I sort of tap into the talent that's going to emerge out of universities in order to do that, right? And so what we are trying to figure out how to do as a university is to help students identify these opportunity gaps that are coming in front of us. The opportunity gaps to increasing production, increasing manufacturing locally. Right? When Nathan asked the question, what do we spend most money on? Most people said food. What do you think we spend most money on importing in Africa? Anyone? I just looked it up. I didn't know myself, and I just found out that it's vehicles. A lot of our money goes towards importing cars, trucks, all the machines that we are driving up and down the roads. Vehicles is one of them. I also just looked it up. I learned that some of our biggest food imports are wheat, palm oil, and I forget the other one. But the most consumed locally grown product is cassava. I didn't know that, right? I thought fufu was a niche, but apparently there's cassava used in multiple meal products across the continent. And I think when we think of the fact that Ashesi has been here for 20 years, there's a lot of work that students have done. Some students start a project, they graduate, they leave their research behind, they go on to different pursuits. But every time a new generation of students comes, they will also try to recreate a new project. But I think there's real power in figuring out how can we keep building on the lessons that people are producing, because I can bet you somewhere in our archives, some student group probably started working on how to become better at growing cassava. And they did some good base work, and then they graduated and they moved on. So the project is sitting somewhere. I can bet you, because I know there was one student that did a machine to shell maize, right? Which is also something we consume quite a lot. But imagine if the next class, and that was from Karen, right? The Creative Arts and Research Intention class. Imagine if someone else took that project and tried to refine it. And then someone else took that project and tried to refine it. Over 6, 7, 8 years of prototyping and refinement, you could probably have something now that's ready to go to market and to be produced at scale. So that you could have an Ashesi team of students across 8 different classes of Ashesi that managed to bring together a maize shelling machine that's now being produced at scale and being used in multiple parts of Africa. If we are going to try to figure out how to bring more innovation for domestication, all of us as students and Ashesi alumni need to start thinking like that. Each year, 350 new students will come into Ashesi. What sort of research is happening today that can be handed off to another generation that can then take and improve and keep growing? So as much as we are trying to limit importation, we should also just try to limit importing ideas, or we want to build a cool new app, right? But imagine if in this class, a couple of you said, we are going to figure out how to grow cassava better, right? And you did that research, and the next class that's sitting in a D-Lab session is going to take that project and say, we want to figure out all the different ways in which we can add value to cassava. Cassava chips, we're going to do gari, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And then the next group says we're going to figure out how we're going to grow cassava and maize on the same plot of land so that we can maximize production from a small piece without continuing to just use up land for farms. If we keep iterating and growing that way as a collective Ashesi body, eventually it might not be 5,000 different products that come out, but the 5 or 6 things that we do really well could have the possibility to reach hundreds of millions of people, because generationally we became very focused on, we're going to pick these key problems and we're going to just keep figuring it out class by class by class, how to do it and how to solve it in a big way, right? So that's my big takeaway for thinking about how Ashesi we can leverage innovation for domestication.
So I want you to speak to the fact, or speak about how D-Lab really fits into this whole thing. What are the support systems that we have available, and how can we do more? How can we work together with the students to start enhancing how we do the things that we already know how to do, and probably look into other areas that are very relevant to innovation for domestication?
So as the D-Lab is structured, we do design thinking and design making. So helping people bring that systems perspective to the problems that they are interested in, but also then providing them the support to do fabrication of concepts that they come up with. In terms of the fellows that we engage, we have individual fellows, people who walk in and say, I want to pursue this idea. And what we normally ask them is, you need to form a team that includes students from other disciplines, because at the core of our structure is interdisciplinary teams. Because as Eben was saying, if engineering students work on 2-3 engineering students work on something and they graduate, they might not be interested in the business side of it, and then there's nothing wrong with it. They want to build things, they don't want to do business. But imagine if they had a team of, they had a broader team, and they had MIS students in there, business students in there, and then suddenly there are other students in there that are thinking about other aspects of the technology that's being built, and commercialization becomes more of a reality from that perspective. So we always ask students to build teams. In fact, we give small amounts of funding, and you won't get the funding unless you have a multidisciplinary team. I hope we are still doing that. By doing that, we are connecting unlikely partners on campus, right? People who are sort of supporting one another in pursuing these initiatives and projects. And then we also have what we call platform projects, which are projects that go on year after year. So one of them is a farm modeling project where, and over time, we've had students work on simple things like growing cabbage, but also more complex concepts like nitrogenation for growing seeds. There was a group that did snail farming. There was another group that did tungani, which had seeds from the different countries that the students at Ashesi come from, and they planted that. It was like a community garden concept. So that's one. We have an electric vehicle project now, one on IoT, one on recommender systems, AI machine learning system to do recommendations, which you see across multiple applications, whether libraries, e-commerce, and so forth. There might be other ones that I'm missing, but the main point here is that these platform projects then become, they're like trains on a track. Students get on, they get off when they graduate, new students get on, they get on when they graduate, and through that we're hoping to engage a lot of some of the projects that Ben was mentioning, some of the engineering capstone kinds of projects that then other students can pick up and continue working on. Because, a lot of these ideas take many years to come to fruition. It's not one or two or one semester. So if you don't have a platform that allows other students to come on and improve on these ideas, then you have a big museum of ideas, but not a lot of solutions on the market, right? And so we're really hoping that we can sort of start to push, continue to push the multidisciplinary team concept, continue to push the platform projects, and maybe we can add a domestication platform. I don't know, because I think that a lot of, the way I think of it is productive use innovation, right? So I come up with innovation that somebody else can use to make money, not innovation to consume. So I'm building tools that people can use to build other things. I'm building systems that people can use to grow things. And so I think that could be a place, and maybe, I don't know if Dr. Nathan has a comment on this, but that could be something that could be a bit more intentional about productive use kinds of innovations, which I think could potentially help us push the innovation to domesticate angle a little bit more.
When I started, I give one example, and it seems to be targeted towards engineers. But actually, we have what is called a skills league. It's open to everyone. You don't have to be an engineer. You can go in. We have an it's not after school, but it runs in periods when students are available and get training on how to use various equipment and how to make or how to fabricate certain things. So you know what you want to do long term, but you need to know how to use the tool. And so you're taught how to do that, and you get a star in our league table. It's like a football league, right? So the more stars you have, the more you rise to the top. That's why you call it a skills league. How many skills do you have? And you rise to the top. Now, when you have a skill, you're allowed to use equipment, usually unsupervised. When you don't have a skill, you're not allowed to touch equipment. We had this before COVID, but COVID killed many things, so we're reviving it. So we started, I don't know if you saw the messages, but it started last week. So it's open to everyone, and it's one of the things that can help not just engineers, but everyone who wants to make something, innovate. So yes, you might not have the engineering knowledge, you might start, but someone else who knows it better can give you further guidance to make a much better product. And when you don't finish, someone else can continue.
Your question was not only sustainability, but improving upon certain ideas and building on the ideas.
Yes.
Or am I okay?
Yes.
So with with the experiential transcript, you have 4 years to look at what you've done thus far and to build on it at your pace and at your choice. So if you look and, it's, I said the three areas of our Ashesi values: scholarship, citizenship, or leadership. Each year you have the opportunity you submit what it is you want us to add to these experiential transcripts, etc. But every year you have every right to ask for, can I see what it looks like? Luckily for us, Mr. Sampa in the computer science department has built a system that allows you to self-manage and upload certain things, which we verify. Hence the credibility enhancement of the experiential transcript. So you can see that over 4 years, and you can self-monitor. So with that one, I don't think you can actually ask someone else to build on it for you, but you would be hopefully motivated to build on your work. It won't be unusual for your first year to have just a few submissions, and then the second and third year be a bit more meaty, and then fourth year, because of capstone and all of that, it becomes a little bit less. That's the typical trajectory of the experiential transcript. For Karine, you are allowed to take it twice, but even better, you can take it once, and then you can move into work study while you're still working on it. So there again, you can either build a team to help you to continue working on it, and there's a small stipend for working on it, in terms of keeping you going. So that's how we've arranged it, so that you can continue to build or expand on the things you initiate in these spaces. I hope I answered your question.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Just to encourage everybody in this house that Africa needs more innovators, and we need you guys to do that. To come up with a thinking. You are endowed with ideas. Just come out. The system is built in such a way that you have the experiential transcript, you have the current course, and all. We don't want you guys to hide behind the curriculum and say that because of this curriculum, I did not discover myself well, or I did not explore. Just to add on to what Prof has said, and just to encourage the house that Africa needs more thinkers, we need more innovators, and they sit right here. So go all out there, manage yourself properly, and don't deny the next generation this big opportunity. We need more thinkers. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.